Congressman Louis T. McFadden delivered this speech to the House of Representatives on June 10th, 1932. Mr. Chairman, we have in this country one of the most corrupt institutions the world has ever known. I refer to the Federal Reserve Board and the Federal Reserve Banks. The Federal Reserve Board, a government board, has cheated the government of the United States and the people of the United States out of enough money to pay the national debt. Mr. Chairman, when the Federal Reserve Act was passed, the people of the United States did not perceive that a world system was being set up here, and that this country was to supply financial power to an international superstate, a superstate controlled by international bankers and international industrialists acting together to enslave the world for their own pleasure. FDR wrote in a letter to Colonel Edward M. House on November 21, 1933, "The real truth of the matter is, as you and I know, that a financial element in the large centers has owned the government ever since the days of Andrew Jackson." Senator William Jenner said in a 1954 speech, "Today, the path to total dictatorship in the U.S. can be laid by strictly legal means. We have a well-organized political action group in this country, determined to destroy our Constitution and establish a one-party state. It operates secretly, silently, continuously to transform our government. This ruthless, power-seeking elite is a disease of our century. This group is answerable neither to the President, the Congress, nor the courts. It is practically irremovable." J. Edgar Hoover was quoted in the Elks magazine, 1956. "The individual is handicapped by coming face to face with a conspiracy so monstrous he cannot believe it exists. The American mind simply has not come to a realization of the evil which has been introduced into our midst. It rejects even the assumption that human creatures could espouse a philosophy which must ultimately destroy all that is good and decent." Congressman Larry P. McDonald was quoted in November 1975 in the introduction to a book titled The Rockefeller File. "The Rockefellers and their allies have, for at least 50 years, been carefully following a plan to use their economic power to gain political control of first America and then the rest of the world. Do I mean conspiracy? Yes, I do. I am convinced there is such a plot, international in scope, generations old in planning, and incredibly evil in intent." Daniel K. Inouye, U.S. Senator from Hawaii, gave the following testimony at the Iran-Contra hearings in 1986. "There exists a shadowy government with its own Air Force, its own Navy, its own fundraising mechanism, and the ability to pursue its own ideas of national interest, free from all checks and balances, and free from the law itself." Need I go on? These are not flibberty-gibbets I'm quoting. And yet people like me get written off as nutters. Well, I'm no Chicken Little. I'm with Franklin Roosevelt. I'm close friends for 10 years with an 80-year-old woman from Ireland. She's a Catholic nun. Her nunnery, what are those things called? Oh, a convent. I just looked it up. Is in Houston. We share the same birthday and many of the same ideas. "I think 9/11 was an inside job," she opined over the phone recently in her lilting Irish voice. If the nuns know it's an inside job, this is big. When elections are rigged and there is systemic corruption, supporting the two-party system is itself a form of corruption. It's like pouring gasoline on a fire. Voting blue or red is the very definition of insanity. Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Millions of people are disenfranchised, disenchanted, and so disgusted that they don't even want to vote. But staying in neutral or going in reverse is not the answer. Driving in a different direction is. I was so disgusted by the Democratic primary that I up and switched parties. I couldn't figure out how to do it online, The Board of Elections website was clear as mud, so I called them. I told the gal I wanted to mail the form in, and she replied that wasn't a good idea. "You'd better come in person. We've had problems with the mail-in option." "What do you mean?" "They don't seem to get registered for some reason." Now, why would that be? I could confirm her assertion, because I'd tried to leave the Democratic Party via mail a few years ago. I was sick to death of all the junk mail I was getting from politicians at election time, not to mention telemarketers, surveys, and political messages rammed into my ear, voicemail, and mailbox, as surely as if there were a bullhorn out my window and a ticker tape parade in my living room. Since there's not a damn thing you can do to stop the barrage of blue and red confetti, I decided to leave the party in the hopes of getting off their call and mailing lists. So I mailed in my request to leave the Democratic Party. Nothing happened. I received no paperwork confirming I was now independent, which I'd requested. Heck, I was so pissed back then I would have become a Republican at that point. When I went to vote in the next primary, I was still registered Democrat. Why are these mail requests lost in space? Don't ask me. I'm just a conspiracy theorist. Heeding her warning, I decided right then and there to march down to the Board of Elections in Lower Manhattan, taking the subway on a swelteringly hot and humid day. Hell hath no fury like a voter scorned. I received confirmation 10 days later in the mail that I will be a member of the Green Party after November 8th. I've encountered a lot of flack from friends on Facebook, both directly and indirectly, regarding my green status. One of the nicer, indirect comments came from a friend who first complained about all the political rants. Well, it is an election year. It was obvious to me that it wasn't political rants per se, just ones he didn't agree with. Later, he commented about third-party voters. "I just don't understand." What is there to understand? That I don't think like you do? That I don't perceive the dangled threat of a Donald Trump presidency to be real? I genuinely believe Trump is in cahoots with Clinton, and that there is only one political party, the Republicrats. Apparently, it's been that way for quite some time, as you heard in the quotes above. We the people never noticed, because the Reds and the Blues put on such a good show, and we are duly entertained, rooting for our team and gnashing our teeth at the enemy, as if at a sporting event. Hillary Clinton wore red to the 2016 presidential debates, and Donald Trump wore blue. Could the message be any clearer? These people are friends. There are photos of them socializing together for decades. I had one Facebook friend, not a close friend, but someone I went to college with, comment on something pro-Jill that I'd posted on my own page. "Jill Stein needs to shut the fuck up." The implication was that I, too, needed to shut the fuck up. I deleted her message and unfriended her. My candidate can't even speak? The people hating on Jill, and me, are liberal Democrats and are some of the most rabid people I now know. I don't tell anyone how to vote. If someone is undecided or planning not to vote, I ask them if they know who Jill Stein is, what the Green Party is. If they say no, I simply encourage them to find out. Easy. Case closed. No one likes to be pushed. An elderly neighbor of mine who was appalled when she learned I was going to vote for Bernie in the primaries, "He's not electable," recently sent me an email. "For those who are planning to vote third party or not at all, this is funny even if you're not Jewish. Please watch and forward." I didn't watch the stupid video, nor did I respond to her, but if I had, I would have said, "This is not funny. It's patronizing and offensive. How dare you tell me how to vote?" But that's what they're all doing. The liberals, that is. Another Facebook friend, someone I went to high school with, but not a close friend, wrote in response to one of the posts on my timeline. Before you decide to vote third party. Before I decide? Is she still deciding to vote for Clinton? No, her decision is already made, as is mine. It's not open for debate. The presumption that I can be swayed is insulting. That I'm not of sound mind is patronizing. It's as if I'm not old enough to make a mature decision. The poor thing isn't thinking straight. Another Facebook friend, someone I hadn't heard from in years, saw fit to send 2 articles for me to read to encourage me to shift my passionate approach to a more measured one. I assured him that my passionate disposition was based on sound reasoning. All emotion comes from thought. When I'm excited, it's because I believe something is good based on analysis. While I was polite in response, I was incredibly pissed. They're all coming out of the woodwork to make sure I vote the way they want me to. At a party I attended recently, a wife sicked her husband on me when she learned I was a Jill Stein supporter and 9/11 truther. Seems she'd never even heard there was any question regarding the official 9/11 story. I'm not sure she'd ever heard of Jill Stein either. She called her husband over. "I gotta see this," she said, excited for the bloodbath. She was a corporate lawyer and had worked for Bloomberg. Her husband was a finance guy who owned his company. I felt like bait at a dogfight. The TPP came up. While I don't fully understand it, who fully understands any of the convoluted laws designed specifically to do just that? Confound. I accept the assessment that the TPP is NAFTA on steroids. In other words, expect the 10 remaining jobs in the U.S. to be blown out of the country, to be outsourced to places where the workers will earn less than nothing. To compound the fact that most Americans already make next to nothing for the 10 jobs we have remaining stateside. Hubby became slightly rabid as he defended the TPP, and his face started twitching like a rabbit's. Americans have the right to choose cheaper products. That's freedom. Do you want the government telling you what to buy? Me. Well, the government certainly will be telling me what to buy if this country gets flooded with more cheap goods produced by slave labor in other countries. Rabid Rabbit responded. Let's take TVs. America makes expensive TVs. Me. Does America make TVs? I didn't think America produces anything anymore. Rabid Rabbit. It's just an example. If you could produce cheaper TVs outside of the U.S., think of all the poor people who could now get them. More poor people could have TVs. That's helping them. Me. This country, and poor people in specific, don't need more TVs, cheap or otherwise. They need food, housing, jobs, education, clean air to breathe, clean water to drink, and non-GMO food that won't give them cancer. But that's it? TVs? Cheaper TVs is your answer?